God, I will believe in a God. There was actually recent things going on in Adam and I's personal life, more or less. And no, we're not in that kind of relationship. It's just easier to say this way instead of mention that what I was trying not to mention, actually. But where up until a point in time that it was resolved, I was actually, for the very first time, seemingly praying in years, where it was like, oh God, please God, no God, please make sure this is done right, this is done right, that kind of deal. And then soon afterwards I got a text message from Adam's wife saying that it had come out right, and I was in tears.
My little girl got lost.
She disappeared for like an hour or something like that.
A couple hours, yeah.
Yeah. And, it freaked me out because I'm actually kind of close to his family. And I absolutely love his daughter, really, I really do. She's the closest thing I have to a niece, a daughter of my own, the little sister I always wanted. So, I'm 30 years old. No way in hell I'm going to be like little sister when her mother is younger than I am and her father is older than I am.
Right.
But it was such a relief. And when she was found, and she was found safe. And I'd like to actually thank any of the police officers who were out that day. And I know I had some beef with just the ideas and monopolized police force and stuff like that. But the guys who were out there looking for her.
Oh, I'm left with the question. The description: small, very small, blonde girl in a pink shirt. How did they not pick her out among the 6 Mexican children she was playing with?
I don't know, but I want to say those guys are looking for.
I cite Mexican purely as a physical description.
Yeah, I understood that. And I would just say to those particular guys that while I don't necessarily agree with the whole system around it here, it's one of those things I would pay for, and I'm actually kind of glad you guys are out there for that.
Yeah. For anyone who may actually bump into us, our number, of course, is 1-347-677-0644.
Of course, my opinion on these guys in particular doesn't change my overall opinion of the system itself. It's just, these guys were good guys, at least in this case.
Yeah.
And I would like, once again, I would thank them heavily for that.
Here's latest news I found in the United States section of the London Guardian. Nixon urged Uruguay to make death threats to jailed rebels. And this is just a bunch of released archived documents that suggest U.S. government knew about death squads operating in South America. I'm not surprised.
That kind of reminds me, I had a story somewhere, I'm not sure if I have it here today, but there is actually a case where Mexican inmates have been released to go and perform assassinations in the United States, and then when they get back to, then they're brought back to Mexico more or less and put back in incarceration. Death row inmates in Mexico, more or less.
Yeah.
And of course, this ties into the fact that they just recently, some Mexican cartels, drug cartels, put out a multi-million-dollar, or maybe multi-thousand-dollar bounty on Sheriff Arpaio, which I'm kind of two ways. In one case, I don't like the man myself. On the other way, and so something like this actually kind of makes me smile in its own right. On the other hand, though, it kind of makes me feel as if that I want to see this happen. I really don't want to see this happen because I don't think it'd be good for anyone.
Right.
I don't think it should be happening anyway because I think despite how I feel with the man, it's better to have him out there making himself look bad than being killed and made a martyr.
Well, the question I have...
And I also don't believe in initiating force.
Well, the question I have with 10 minutes remaining is... I just lost my question. Do you guys want to end now, or...
a few things here, too. Speaking of drug cartels, marijuana may cause Canada's economic come down. And what is mentioned here is not so much the legal trade of it, right, but more or less if it became legal in the United States. It would basically destroy Canada's economy because it may destroy Canada's economy because a thriving marijuana industry, whether it's just selling seed whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Or the whole shebang, actually apparently brings a lot of money into Canadian government. And I believe this was suggested by the title, and particularly throughout the article here from theguardian.co.uk. Quite frankly, this is one of those things, not being a fan of government, at least monopoly government rather than the state. Something used for actual defense of individuals who want their services, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care if by legalizing marijuana it actually hurts Canada's government. I care a lot more than hurting Canada's people in this case.
Right.
But the Canadian people are not the same as Canadian government. Not much like the U.S. people or Americans, more or less, right, are not the same as the American government.
Well,
but our overarching training to more or less think.
and their public broadcaster is actually entirely government funded, whereas
It's only partially government funded here.
I'm
Yeah, that
I
was a
would-
joke if you didn't catch it, but
it went way over my head.
it wasn't really funny anyway.
Okay.
I do have one more thing to say about, before I really want to sit around here. It's, we made a big thing about the Arizona immigration law. I mentioned that too, and then
Right.
to our file. And
And I noticed that a federal judge gutted,
that's basically the whole thing, yeah.
which goes, but wasn't it the will of the people that passed it?
Well,
There was
the thing about immigration,
there was a 70% voter approval rate on it, and it mirrored the federal statute, so it wasn't even violating any existing laws.
well, except the federal government wants more power than the state government does in this case.
And I find it amusing that the federal government, when they sued it on that law,
Yeah?
said that basically said the states don't have the right to enforce federal statutes.
That's really fun because, once we were mentioning just basically back to the drug thing right quick here, that means
Isn't that a federal statute that
Yeah.
the state that they expect the states
Yeah.
to enforce?
This isn't actually an original comment. This isn't the original time Adam and I have actually mentioned that because the first time he mentioned me, I took a second to think that out.
Yeah.
It was like, but because we talked about that, I automatically knew we'd go there.
So I'm waiting for somebody to actually fight their drug conviction on the grounds that, well,
It was picked up by the state guy, or the local guy.
yeah, federal judge ruled that the local agencies don't have the right to enforce federal statutes.
Yeah, well, what I mentioned here, though, is that, remember when we were talking, when it first came out, the gnome was more or less the one that he was saying when we find out that it actually has some racial tinge to it, right, that he'll come out against that particular law, right? And basically mentioned here, in my point of view, though I'm not really a big fan of government in general, and the Constitution isn't being held the way that I believe it really is intended to. Immigration is a state issue. Naturalization, on the other hand, is a federal issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, quite frankly, since the two are totally different things, literally, right?
Mhm.
At the time this is ratifying here, no one's changed here. While I disagree with the Arizona law and the fact that it's been spread around the other western states, including Idaho here, I really, I'm not really going to be all up and on against it because, at the very least, I think it's more a constitutional statement.
All
So,
that it really was
I don't
that
like
if you're
law, but-
already questioning somebody for something else,
Well, that's me about it too. I don't want to have to carry around a birth certificate for proof of citizenship come through here, right?
well,
it
you're
may-
supposed
it
to
may
carry
affect-
around photo ID anyways as an adult.
Well, that's another whole different statement there, right? And that's what my dad said when we talked about that. But my statement more or less, my statement more or less here is that I don't really believe that I don't think it's right for them to do that. Being so heavily more liberty-minded in that case, because you're supposed to be securing your persons and possessions.
Mm-hmm.
But we have the Fourth Amendment to the Federal Constitution. Anyways, which arguably means it really doesn't matter because we're talking about state taxes. But, so it is here. Now, this isn't exactly being based around the law itself, but I thought it'd be interesting to mention here because white supremacist activity is actually on the rise in Arizona now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great because, quite frankly, Arizona, take our white supremacists. Take them. Take the skinheads. Take the the Imperial Ku Klux Klan and other efforts.
Get them all in one place, blow them the hell up.
Nice.
I wouldn't say that, but,
No.
it is funny.
It actually comes from a stand-up comic I heard years ago. He said his dad, about all sorts of groups were always saying that, and one point he said his dad got up on the Arabs and said, get them all in one place and blow them the hell up. And like, Dad, they're already all in one place. Like, great, blow them the hell up. Like, you're missing the point.
When I was in the service, speaking of that point, I was, when I was in the service, I think maybe the guy was just tired to be in the Middle East at the time, the Persian Gulf. And he more or less the guy having to sit down to share a table with eating, and for some reason we actually started talking. I was kind of taken aback because I understand the concept of collateral damage. And I understood that there was going to be collateral damage in the war. And I understood that as long as I was part of the service, if they sent me to war, I was going to war, right? So, I had more or less made my peace as best I could with the idea that I might lead to some poor innocent being killed, right? This guy actually wanted to see the entire Middle East turn to Shiite life.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the first time I've heard that sentiment.
And I don't know how much of it is simply because he was tired of being in the Persian Gulf, but I was kind of taking it back at the time. And that should tell you something, because I was in the service at that time. That was the area where, if he had gotten to talk with Ian Freeman about it a little bit, we would have been a lot more fun, I guess, in a sense. Because we had the two arguing, and of course, I'm kind of neutral in this statement. Again, I'm getting the 3-minute thing here. Now that we don't have an interview, I'm just talking and talking and talking.
Well,
But you want to end?
Yeah, this has been Got Consent Podcast, live from Boise, Idaho. I'm, of course, your host, Mark Reinhardt.
I'm Ross Gibbons.
And Adam Heyman.
Well, before we close up, one last thing. You can contact us once again at gotconsentpodcast@mailtnoble.com.
And for the guest call-in number, you can always...
different, probably, Lou.
No, it's still the same.
Okay.
You can, for the guest call-in number, if you're interested, it's 1-347-677-0644.
Of course, that won't mean now because we're closing. But thanks, guys, for listening, and have a nice day and week and whatever.
All right. That's the way it is.
Excellent, guys. We're good. I better stop my...